Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
Hi everyone. Today we're going to be installing our rearward control arm on our 2007 Mazda 6 sedan behind me. And this is the part. They call it the rearward control arm in the front because there's two on this particular vehicle. So if you need this part or any part for your car, come on over to 1aauto.com. So we're going to start by removing the wheel. I have it partially on the ground so I can break the lug nut free. It's a 21mm socket. I got my 1/2-inch breaker bar. All right, so now that those are broken free and I can turn them by hand, I'm going to raise my vehicle. I have a 2-post lift. If you have a floor jack and jack stands, you do the same thing. So now with the car up in the air, we're going to remove the lug nuts and set them aside. Perfect. It's frozen on there. And this happens quite often when you have an aluminum rim with a steel front end. Obviously the steel and the aluminum, they oxidize together. So I'm going to show you how to take this wheel off safely. A lot of people don't think about this. I know I didn't the first couple of times I did it. Take a lug nut and just put it back on by hand. Not all the way, halfway. And now when you take your rubber mallet or your pry bar and you hit it from the other side, it doesn't fly off. I take a rubber mallet and I hit the rubber part of the tire on the back side. That came off nice and easy. Sometimes they don't want to come off that easy. You just got to keep giving it an effort back and forth. Now we can remove that lug nut and dismount the tire. I'm going to be removing the right lower control arm rear. The front has been removed for other processing and the brakes have been taken off for another job. But while I'm here, I'm going to remove the rear and you'll be able to see better access with the other items removed. You don't need to remove the forward control arm or the brakes to do the rear lower control arm. So now we're going to remove the nut from the knuckle for the rear control arm ball joint. It is a 15/16 or 24mm. I have a 1/2-inch ratchet on there. And you can see the movement from the CV shaft. So if I was doing the job and I was doing both lower control arms, the front and the rear, I would have loosened up both these nuts at the same time before I dismounted the actual control arm from this knuckle. But where I did that for a different show, and now I'm doing the rear, you have to be careful from the movement because you don't want to pull that axle out of the joint. Now I'm going to remove the rearward control arm ball joint from the knuckle, and I took the liberty to spray with a rust inhibitor spray, and I'm going to use my pickle fork. And I'm going to go in right between the ball joint and the knuckle, make some noise here and see if I can separate them. That's how you do it with the big hammer. With that rear control arm ball joint now out, you can see both of these bushings. Sometimes they will actually come out with pressed onto this sleeve on the stud of the ball joint. And when that happens, you need to pull it off or press it off. I did the other side and I needed to use the press to press them off. A puller almost broke. So if that does happen, if you have a puller, you can try it. Be careful, safety glasses please. If you cannot get it off the actual old ball joint, you have to go to a machine shop and get it pressed off. To remove the rearward control arm ball joint, the mounting bolt is right here. That's a 15mm head bolt. And it's about 4.5 inches long, goes into the subframe. The nut is welded in the frame, so you don't have to worry about that. But to access that, we have to lower the subframe. So first thing you're going to do is get a bottle jack or another jack and support the subframe. Now with pressure on it, I can take the nut off where the body mount goes to this subframe to the body, and I have to take this bracket down first. This is 15mm socket. And then we have another one right here. The large bolt, this nut is 21mm, sorry. 21mm nut. That one will be a little bit difficult breaking free. 21mm socket. I'm going to break that free. I'm going to let that bracket right down with the nut. Note there's a washer. Make sure you don't lose that. Now we're going to repeat these steps, the 2 bracket, on the other side. 21mm nut, socket, and 215. I'm going to take this bracket down, and now the rear subframe will be free to pivot down so we can get to that mounting bolt for that control arm. So there is a wiring harness. It looks like it's for the O2 sensors that is attached to this bracket. I'm just going to leave it attached and let it hang freely. There's no need to undo that. I left the 2 front bolts attached to the subframe because no need to take it all the way down. I'm using a 15mm swivel. You can use a wrench to break yours free. Put the control arm in my hand. Get that bolt out. I'm going to use a little pry bar. And then I can pull this right out. Here we have our 2 lower control arms for our 07 Mazda 6. This one came from 1aauto.com. They're both the same length, same curvature. Comes with a factory style nut, which you need on this because of the spacer on the actual knuckle. Comes with pre-loaded thread locker in it, and it has the shipping cover, which goes over the dust boot to protect it during shipping. Make sure you discard that when you're installing. Self-greased joint with a nice lock round ring clip. High quality. If you need this part or any other part for your vehicle, come on over to 1aauto.com. To install the rear control arm, make sure you take the nut off first and the protective boot. We set those aside. And remember, when installing, the stud for the lower ball joint doesn't go up into the knuckle, it actually goes down into the knuckle. So this side could be installed wrong. Goes in real nice, but doesn't line up. You don't want to make that mistake because then you have to unbolt the subframe again. So we're going to slide that right in. Now I can line my bolt up in. This is where I'm going to have to get my pry bar again. And give a little helping hand from the pry bar. Now I can move my control arm up and line the threads up. Once I snug this down, I'm going to get my torque wrench and I'm going to torque it to the manufacturer's specs before I put the subframe up. Before I torque down the rear mounting of this control arm, I'm going to put it in the knuckle, because if it tightens that bushing up too tight and I can't move my control arm in place, that won't be good. You're just going to put the stud right through the hole there. So I had to use my pry bar again to bring this subframe down so I could get my torque wrench in there. It's 93 foot-pounds to tighten this. Beautiful. I can move the pry bar out. Okay, I'm going to mount this bracket back up, line up those 2 holes. Make sure I put the washer on, then the nut first. Just loosely so I can line these 2 bolts up. This is where I'm going to actually lift up my subframe to line everything up again. Okay, now the bolts will go right in smooth. Line those up. I'm going to repeat the process on the other side, put the bracket back up. I'm going to torque this bolt to 114 foot-pounds. That's a 21mm socket. While I'm tightening that up, I'm guiding my steel bracket. And I just want to snug those bolts up. I do want to torque the body bolt, this body mount bolt, before I torque those down though. Okay. Now we're just going to repeat this process over here. The smaller bolts, 15mm socket, 76 foot-pounds. Now we're ready to lower our support. I have a bottle jack here, pole jack, and we can get this out of the way. So now I'm just going to remount my tire, put it up against the hub, put my lug nuts on, hand tight. I'm just going to hand tighten them with my socket. Then I'm going to lower it down on the ground. And I'm going to torque these to 83 foot-pounds. So now I'm going to torque my wheels at 83 foot-pounds in a star pattern. That just helps make sure that the seat of the rim is seated correctly against the hub. Double check it real quick. There you go.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.